Hey there, comic book community. Joe here with another episode of 360 Comics. Today we're talking all about 8 runs from the Silver and Bronze Age of comics that are easy to collect and even complete due to a low issue count, affordable price point, or both. As of this morning, we hit 6,000 followers over on Instagram, so it's time to give these 2 books away. Tune in tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Instagram, and I'm going to pick a winner. If you haven't entered yet, now is your last chance to do so, and then I'll be announcing some whatnot giveaways, so go follow there as well. And of course, our 1,500 subscriber giveaway here on YouTube coming soon. Whether you're a big-time reader, a completionist collector, or just really into a certain character, there are so many reasons out there to collect full runs of a comic series, but most of them are very expensive to do, especially for the more popular characters. When you go back to the Silver and Bronze Age, it gets even harder to do so. That's why I put this video together today, to show you that that's not the case in all situations. Some runs were very short, others have just low price points on the book, so we're going to go through 8 of them today, and I hope you enjoy. Kicking it off is the run that inspired this video, as well as one that I have almost completed myself, Spider-Woman Volume Number 1. Now, this started in the late 70s after Spider-Woman initially appeared in Marvel Spotlight number 32, and it ran for 50 issues. Now, in the grand scheme of things, 50 issues, not a lot. A lot of runs go hundreds, and some now are even going into the thousands. But that being said, 50 issues is more than any other book run on this list. So it's a little bit harder in the aspect that, it's just more books to acquire, but with a low price point on almost all of them, it doesn't take much money to acquire these books. In fact, I've found them in dollar bins plenty of times, $2 bins, $3 bins, all that stuff. And there really only are a couple issues that are more than like $5 or $10 usually. Issue number 1 is, $20, $30, $40, depending on condition. And the issue where she meets Spider-Man, that's another key, as well as this book. This is one of my favorite ones. This is a Frank Miller cover, which features the Universal Pictures monsters, Bela Lugosi's Dracula, Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, and Lon Chaney Jr.'s Wolfman. Now, I was obsessed with those movies as a kid. I was really into horror, so the fact that they are depicted on the cover here is really cool, and it's the first meeting between Spider-Woman and Werewolf by Night, so a little horror tie-in there as well. Like I said, other than those 3 books, I think everything could probably be found for $5 or less, and plenty of these books are in dollar bins all over the place. So not a very difficult run to look out for, and there's definitely some potential on this character as well. This character has not come to the MCU yet. They have not come to the animated Spider-Man universe, but given that it is a Spider-Verse situation and there are a ton of different Spider-Men and Spider-Women, it is totally possible that we see this character in the sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, or the third one, which is already being planned apparently, which might be called Across the Spider-Verse 2, I think, as of right now. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, definitely a cool character. Could definitely come to the MCU. In my opinion, though, I think we're probably more likely to see Julia Carpenter in the MCU, if they ever do like a Secret Wars kind of thing. But you never know. This character definitely could be utilized, and with a 50-issue run, it is not hard to complete. Next up, we've got another heroine of the 1970s in Greer Grant Nelson, aka the Cat. Now, her first appearance is in this book right here, Beware the Claws of the Cat, number 1, and this run only lasted a mere 4 issues, so it is very easy to pick up, especially because other than this first book, the price point is very low. Now, like I said, this book was canceled after 4 issues, but this character did not necessarily leave the Marvel Universe. A few years later, she showed up as more of a, mutated hybrid between a human and a tiger, known as Tigra, who has made many appearances throughout the last couple decades of Marvel. The cat uniform, the costume that we're seeing on the cover here, it may also look kind of familiar to you because what's her name? Hellcat, Patsy Walker, uses a very similar, actually pretty much the same uniform. I believe it was like handed down to her or she found it or something like that, and then took on the role of Hellcat in this same costume. And there's been different iterations over the years where it's slightly different, but generally it is the same. It also, to me, is very reminiscent of Wolverine's costume. I don't know if that was done intentionally. They kind of recycled the costume a few years later on the Wolverine character, but hey, it is what it is. This one, like I said, very affordable. Not just that, a very short run. There's only 4 books, and this one is the only one that is a real key issue. And even so, you can probably get a decent grade copy for under $100, or a lower grade copy probably for under $50, and the other ones you can get those issues for $10 in a decent grade. So if you're looking for a character, maybe a little MCU speculation if Tigra ever does come to the MCU, just a really affordable run to get. And a nice little read at that. I've collected this entire run, and I have all 4 issues, and I think it's pretty good. Where Spider-Woman was difficult because of the amount of issues in the run, Silver Surfer Volume 1 is difficult due to the price tag on some of these books. In fact, even the filler issues in this run are $20, $30, even $40 due to the popularity of the character and there being some minor key significances in there. Now, issue number 1, a very expensive book, mainly because the first appearance of Silver Surfer is very, very expensive, and people will gravitate to their first solo run book, especially because it came out shortly thereafter. Book number 2, which I have right here, actually a pretty affordable book. $20 or $30 most of the time that you can find it. Book number 3, first appearance of Mephisto, expensive. And book number 4 is a classic cover featuring Thor and the Silver Surfer and a battle between the two. And that book is even more expensive than the Mephisto book, I believe, or they're kind of on par with each other. This run goes for 18 issues. So from 6 to 18, like I said, those books are certainly a lot more affordable, but it's not like you're really ever going to find them in a dollar bin. You might get lucky and get a low grade copy for, $3 to $5 or something like that. But most of the time you're going to see them marked at 10, 20, or even possibly more in high grade. These are all really thick books. They have that square bound spine to them. So because of that, it's much, much harder to find them in a high grade. So, very few 9.8s exist of this book, but it is definitely one that collectors go after because it's an 18-issue run of a very, very popular character. Now, I think we all know the Silver Surfer will eventually make his way to the MCU. And, at that point, the price of these books will likely go up. And as I said, they're already very expensive. So I'm holding on to all the copies that I have. I have a few books here and there, but none of the big ticket items. But hey, maybe that's something I'll pick up in the near future. I had to show some DC love on this list, and I chose to do so in the form of what I think is a pretty underrated character, Anthro, a young cave boy trying to survive in the ancient times. This is a 6-issue run, very, very affordable. Even issue number 1 is pretty cheap. It's not Anthro's first appearance. If you want that, you got to go back to DC Showcase Presents number 74, which honestly is still a very inexpensive book. You can get a low-grade copy for $15 or $20, and even a higher grade copy can get for under $100. But Anthro number 1 through 6, those all day you can get for $5 or $10. Really cheap, really affordable. And the character was even used a couple times over the years in different events, such as Crisis on Infinite Earths and Final Crisis as recent as the 2000s. Like I said, underrated character. I was easily able to collect this entire run, as well as Anthro's first appearance. And I think I spent less than $100 for all 7 of the books mentioned. But yeah, great stuff. And, the character will likely pop up here and there in DC continuity from time to time again, as we've seen him use pretty much every decade, since his inception. With some of the best covers from this era, including the Steranko one, I could not leave Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., off of this list. Just like the Silver Surfer run from this era, it lasted only 18 issues and is pretty affordable. As far as the Nick Fury run, it's even more affordable than the Silver Surfer run, which gets pretty expensive. Issue number 1 is kind of pricey, as well as this issue number 4 due to the cover, but really the rest of the books in the run you can grab in a low grade for between $5 and $10 and probably spend about $20 to get a nice mid to high grade copy. Not very expensive at all. When you really get up there though, like the 9.0 pluses, they get pretty expensive just because of the age of the books and the easy collectability of this run. A lot of collectors try to put it together, whether it be slabbed or high grade raw. Yeah, like I said, pretty affordable, and some great stuff, of course. I personally love this cover and have most of the books from this run that I've acquired. I still need, I know, number 1 and a couple of the later issues. Those are a little bit more scarce because of the lower print count, but they are still out there. You can definitely find them. Up next, we've got Volume 1 of Miss Marvel, which took a previously used character, Carol Danvers, who had appeared alongside Captain Marvel, and put her in her own solo run titled Miss Marvel. And it's the first time she goes by that name in this first issue right here. Now, a lot of this run, very inexpensive. There were a couple of, minor characters that were thrown in to this run with first appearances. And even those keys are still not really more than like $20 or $30 in a high grade, 10 or 15 in a low grade. There are a few books in the middle of this run that get pretty expensive because this is the run that gave us the character Mystique, who is most closely tied to the X-Men, specifically her partnership with Magneto and the fact that she raised Rogue and was her adoptive mother. Now, Mystique appears in 2 kind of like cameo appearances. If you know anything about Mystique, you know she's a shapeshifter. She becomes other people, and she is disguised as those people in her first 2 appearances, issue 16 and 17, which are pricey books, but not as pricey as issue number 18. She makes her first blue skin, self appearance, and that is the expensive book in this run. A lot more expensive even than the first issue of the run. Now, that being said, the rest, like I said, very affordable, and at only 23 issues in this run, it's definitely an easy one to pick up. We already have Ms. Marvel in the MCU. I don't think these are great speculation books per se, other than the Mystique ones, because she certainly could eventually come to the MCU once we get mutants. But just some great stuff to pick up, and in my opinion, a pretty great story as well. A lot of people didn't like the Ms. Marvel movie, but don't, if that's all the exposure that you've had to Ms. Marvel, please don't judge her based upon that movie. It wasn't great, I'll admit. This run, though, very, very solid. I could not make a video about the Bronze Age of comics without talking about one of my favorite areas of the hobby, Bronze Age horror. Now, from the 1950s to the 1970s, the Comics Code Authority had a real stranglehold on the horror genre. They did not allow the type of violence that we saw in the Golden Age to exist any longer, and they didn't even let you write stories about werewolves or vampires. They were seen to be corrupting the children. Kind of crazy stuff. Definitely way, way too strict. That's why we don't see any Silver Age horror stuff. The non-superhero books basically became sci-fi and mystery stuff with, some minor horror elements. But finally, during the 1970s, the grip was released a little bit, and that's why we see Marvel starting up with like Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night, and DC starting Swamp Thing and things like that. Those characters that are now staples of comics did not exist until that time because of the Authority. Now, when they did release that grip, Marvel went ahead and they started this run, which is called Fear, later to be known Adventure into Fear. We'll get to some of those books in a second. But Fear initially reprinted stories from the Golden Age, introducing some readers that might not have been around at that point to the horror genre. So they just kind of recycled things, probably to get a feel for how things were going. Were people going to buy these? And apparently they were, because this run continued and eventually started showcasing original stories. Now, what they did, something that I love, they took characters that appeared in other books and they put them in this as a solo story, as an origin story, things like that. So one of the examples right here, we've got issue number 10 of Adventure into Fear, which features the first ever Man-Thing solo story. Really cool stuff. It's got that classic Bronze Age border. Love it. And just 10 issues later, Morbius took over the run, a character that is very popular now due to the movie coming out just next month. And, his first appearance was in Amazing Spider-Man, and he was utilized for a couple issues and, wasn't in there for a while after that, but he got this first solo run to kind of flesh out the character a little bit, and eventually made his way into more prominence in the 90s with that solo run that he had with the tie-ins to the Midnight Suns. And now we're getting a movie, and it looks pretty good in my opinion. So this is a great run. There are a bunch of key issues in here. Some of them are a little bit more expensive, including those two. I think those are probably the most expensive of the books. But it only ran for 31 issues, so it's definitely not too hard to pick up, and a lot of them can be had for between $5 and $10. Last up on the list is an even more affordable horror/sci-fi run from this era, and that's because it's only 8 issues, and it mostly is reprints. Actually, I think it might even be entirely reprints from the early Silver Age and the Golden Age. Marvel took a lot of their content that they had, put away in safekeeping back from their time as Atlas Comics and Timely Comics, and they, reintroduced these characters and these stories to new readers. And this was a great way for them to, like I said, test the water and kind of make sure that, this stuff was going to sell before they really dove in. And, apparently it worked, because we got so many characters like Man-Wolf and Werewolf by Night and Ghost Rider that have that horror supernatural element to them. So yeah, this really, really affordable run. You could probably find every book in this run in a decent grade for like $5. It's like I said, all reprints. I don't think there's anything special about any of these books, and it's only 8 issues, so I bet you could pick up the whole run for probably like $50, less than $50 or something like that. So keep an eye out for that if you are into the horror genre. Thank you guys for watching the video. I know it was a little bit different than a lot of the videos that I come out with, but I like this kind of educational stuff to showcase some, runs that maybe you didn't know about, or give you some information that you hadn't heard before, do a little history education kind of thing, along with talking about the hobby that we all love. Please give this video a thumbs up for a like, and let me know in the comments below, what you thought about this video. Do you like this kind of content? Do you want to see more of it? Feel free to give me a suggestion on a topic that you'd like me to talk about. Any of those things I will gladly use. Of course, don't forget to go follow on Instagram as well, and on Whatnot. If you don't have Whatnot yet, look down below in the description. There is a sign up link where if you sign up, each of us will get $10 free to use on the Whatnot app for a purchase, and that makes everyone happy. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, turn the page, wash your hands.